Politics. I'm your host, Darlene Price, and tonight we have a very special report. But before we get started, as always, we want to thank MBR TV for keeping us on the air, our local cable TV channel, for all these years, 12 years I think now we've been on the air. And we want to thank our viewers on Facebook and on YouTube, all of our fans. We want to thank you very much for staying with us. What we're going to cover tonight, and by the way, this is not a call-in show because this is a special report and we got a lot of stuff to get through, so I apologize. This is not a call-in report. This is not a call-in show, so please be patient with us. We will have a call-in show coming up in the near future. We haven't had one in a little bit because our television station where we normally film got an electric strike and a lot of things were destroyed, and they're piecing that back together. So, but stay with us. This will broadcast on television as well. It'll just be television at a later time. You're watching it live now on Facebook. Okay, let's get started. Last night there was a Somerset City Council meeting, and I approached and confronted the mayor about this wastewater treatment plant and the violations that it's receiving and how it affects all of us. And I read a statement before the city council. Before I get into and I'm going to read that to you here in a minute. Before we get started, I also uploaded the violations. We had a pretty good audience there last night at the Somerset City Council meeting, and usually there's like hardly ever anybody there. But pretty good audience last night, and once I read my statement, the audience started piping in, and the mayor didn't like that. He tried several times to stop the meeting, and I want to say thank you to everybody who showed concern last night and voiced their concerns. I want to thank you so much for doing that. A couple of ladies recommended that even though we did a whole documentary on this, like 4 hours worth, it's entitled Lake Cumberland, What Really Lies Beneath, and you can see it in its entirety on YouTube. Just type in Lake Cumberland, What Really Lies Beneath, Part 1 and Part 2. There's a lot of documents we posted, and it's too long. I know it's too long because if you're making an extraordinary accusation, which we are, you have to have an extraordinary proof, which we do have. So the ladies last night suggested that I take out just the violations and post those, and that was really a good idea. So I've done that. Right below this show tonight, if you scroll down on Facebook, you can see the link for those violations. And I've gone on some other pages, the citizens page up there, Pulaski County Parents page, and posted just the link to these violations. So you can see for yourself, folks, how bad these violations are. You can read for yourself and be your own investigator. So what happened was, I stood up and read this statement, and I'm going to read this statement to you now. On June 15th of this year, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency released new standards regarding perfluorooctanic acid, also known as PFAs, PFOAs, C8, which is what I call it a lot, C8, or forever chemicals. This move was based on significant evidence that PFOs, in other words, forever chemicals, presented substantial danger to human health and welfare and the environment. These forever chemicals can accumulate and persist in the human body for long periods of time. Evidence from laboratory animals and human epidemiology studies indicate that the exposure to these forever chemicals may lead to the following: cancer, reproductive, developmental, and cardiovascular, liver, and immunological effects. Very small doses of these forever chemicals have been linked to the following: reproductive and immune system harm, testicular, kidney, liver, and pancreatic cancers, weakened childhood immunity, low birth weight, endocrine disruption, increased cholesterol, weight gain in children and dying adults, just to name a few. The EPA announced in June that these forever chemicals, also known as C8, are more dangerous than previously thought and pose health risks even at levels so low they cannot currently be detected. The agency issued non-binding health advisories that seek health risk thresholds for these forever chemicals to near zero, replacing the 2016 guidelines that has been set by them, and I've talked about these previous guidelines before, at 70 parts per trillion. So let me repeat that. The new standard issued by the EPA this year, just a few months ago, says that for the safe levels of these forever chemicals in our water is now zero. There are no safe levels of these forever chemicals in our water. How clear can you be about that? Forever chemicals are notoriously found in industrial landfills, which take in scraps and waste consisting of the following, but not limited to: Gore-Tex materials, firefighting foam, stain-resistant carpet scraps, coated cardboard, coated wood products, Scotch-guarded materials, military and civilian vehicle discarded parts, stain-resistant furniture, coated textiles, and non-stick cookware, just to name a few. Since at least 2016 through August of this year, the state of Kentucky EPA and the State Water District have issued the Somerset wastewater treatment plant repeated serious violations for allowing dangerous waste, for example, E. coli and suspended solids, to flow directly into Seeking Creek and Pittman Creek. I have these completed documents here with me today. That's the ones I posted, folks. It's part of this. Those are the violations that I posted. In each and every notice of violation that you receive, the Somerset WWP received, the following language is stated in every one of these violations. And again, you can go pull these up and read them for yourself. And it says, and I quote, "Violations of the above cited statutes and or regulations are subject to a civil penalty per day per violation. Violations carry penalties of up to $25,000 per day per violation, depending on the statute and regulation violated." Close quotes. I have spoken to confidential, reliable experts that state that these levels were so serious in some incidences, especially with the E. coli. Go look at some of those incidents where it's 10 times the allowable amount. That Pittman Creek should have been closed and notices should have gone out to the general public and the health department. None of this was done. In 2019, the Somerset City Council and this mayor made the decision to bring in millions and millions of gallons of toxic waste from 4 different industrial landfills in the form of leachate. All of these landfills accept waste that will most assuredly contain high levels of these forever chemicals, as well as extremely hard to filter out asbestos. They say right on the front of their webpage, you can go look at this yourself, be your own investigator, they accept demolition waste. That's some of the most toxic stuff there is. The contract for this leachate was in fact approved by Mayor Keck. Thus far, as of September 22 of this year, this elected body, in other words, the city council last night and this mayor, have brought into this, and by the way, not all city council members. There's some city council members that are standing up against this. They don't like it and they don't want it. So it's not all city council members. But they have brought into the city and beyond 41,850,605 gallons of this toxic waste, and introduced it into this already defective wastewater treatment plant that has been cited for violations dozens of times. This mayor either knew or should have known that this plant, being over 30 years old, was antiquated, broken, and was not handling the waste it was already taking in. Yet the dangerous decision to bring in millions of gallons of toxic waste and adding it to this well-documented defective treatment plant was made with no real legitimate notice to the public or to the health department. In September of this year, the Kentucky Energy Environmental Cabinet released a statewide fish consumption advisory. This advisory is based on a study that found these forever chemicals, the C8, in every single fish sampled in lakes and streams across the state. Researchers collected and tested fish including large and smallmouth bass, rainbow trout, bluegill, and sunfish. This study indicated that these chemicals have already been found in every major Kentucky watershed and at unsafe levels in at least 38 drinking water systems. They only tested 38 drinking water systems, not all of them. So every one that they tested, they found it in. While the Somerset City Council is not solely responsible for the statewide poisoning, it is a fact that Seeking Creek flows into Pittman Creek and that Pittman Creek flows into Lake Cumberland, then into the Cumberland River. The river flows downstream all the way to Nashville, Tennessee. In other words, what happens in Pittman Creek does not stay in Pittman Creek. Pulaski County and numerous other towns all across the Cumberland River get their drinking water from the Cumberland River, as do the abundance of wildlife and farm animals we all depend upon. My research has shown that almost none of these communities have been or are currently testing for these forever chemicals, and only a very few have the expensive filtration systems to filter out these dangerous toxins from our drinking water. And yet, as Mayor Keck repeatedly states, they all meet state standards. I presented this information to the same City Council in March of this year after we published our documentary on this very thing entitled, They Come From What Really Lies Beneath. The reaction of this mayor has been, quite frankly, shameful. This mayor's reaction has been to deflect and mislead the public as to the dangers that this leachate poses to public health and to the environment. Mayor Keck's consistent, canned answer to mislead the public is, we meet state standards, which in and of itself is not true. With the numerous serious violations you've been given as a result of the August 22nd, as recent as August 22nd, and again, that's the violations I've posted for all you guys to see, they do not meet state standards. In fact, they're in violation of them. In the mayor's response in March 2022, he stated, and I'm going to quote what the mayor said. This is out of the horse's mouth. He said, the city of Somerset is borrowing $4.5 million to fix this ongoing challenge and likely spending a total of nearly $8 million, all on problems that were created nearly 6 years ago. That statement means that the Somerset wastewater treatment plant and this mayor knew that the system was so defective that they were going to have to spend this tremendous amount of money to fix it. You can't have it both ways. You can't make statements that are meant to lead everyone into believing that everything's okay and there's nothing wrong here, and then demand the taxpayers to hand you over approximately what will be approximately $10 million, maybe more with interest, so that you can fix your broke down system. Further, the state of Kentucky does not require testing for these dangerous forever chemicals, and you, Mayor, in your statement on October 19th, have finally admitted that you are not testing for them either. Just because we have failed leadership in Frankfort and in this Kentucky's governor who are allowing you to get away with this, that doesn't make it right and that doesn't make it safe. Even though our investigation into this dangerous decision began almost 3 years ago, we were accused of politics because of your election. And just think about this. Everyone that's gone and watched Lake Cumberland, What Really Lies Beneath, Part 1 and 2, look how long that is. Do you think that we put that together and just threw that together for this election? That took years in the making and months of editing. Right, Michael, sitting back here, the editor?
And if they would have surrendered their documents in a timely manner, it would have been released sooner.
Right, and that's a good point, too. And I didn't say this last night, but I'm going to make this point right now. Good point. By the way, City of Somerset, the city attorney up there, jerked us around for 6 months and would not cough up these documents. It wasn't until, oh, by coincidence, after I reported it to the Attorney General's office, and our very good Attorney General assigned an Assistant Attorney General to this, magically the documents started flowing. So that's another reason that it took 6 months, even longer. Okay, so even though our investigation into this dangerous decision began almost 3 years ago, we were accused of politics because of the mayor's election. As I stated to the mayor in our first meeting, I care nothing about your election. However, what are now indisputable facts are the following. Number one, as we sit here today, you, Mayor Keck, are the mayor right now, and you're the mayor that can act and stop this. Number two, you, Mayor Keck, approved the contract to bring in this toxic leachate. Number three, you, Mayor Keck, most certainly do know that this treatment plant was and is highly defective. Says so the State Water District and the State EPA in these numerous violations. Number four, despite this knowledge, you and a few of the City Council, some of them were not for this, so let me be clear about that. You and some of these council members, you made this decision and continue to place an entire ecosystem, this community and numerous other communities downstream in jeopardy by bringing in, by now, because the other numbers I just read you were September. This is the end of October, and at that rate, it's well over 42 million gallons of toxic waste and introducing it into this defective wastewater treatment plant. that then dumps out into Pittman Creek. And number 5, and as everyone should be aware, the Pulaski County drinking water intake is about 2 miles downstream from Pittman Creek. And I'm going to get into his argument with me about that, okay, the mileage and stuff. But what I was trying to get across is where Pittman Creek flows into Lake Cumberland. You can see it from the Waitsboro dock. You can see it. So it's about, give or take, a few miles. These are the facts, and this evidence is indisputable. That's the statement I read last night. So let me get into now the mayor's response. What happened then after I read that statement is people got up and started, questioning him, and people started firing from the audience. So I'm going to hit the mayor's responses, not only to my statement, but I'm basically going to call BS on the mayor's BS. And my BS meter was totally pagan last night, as were most of the people in the audience who saw right through his BS. But I'm going to pick that apart now. First off, I want to just say this to new people who are watching. I started my career in the Army as an officer in the United States Army Military Police Corps, and I was assigned to a criminal investigation unit. On my first day on the job as a brand new second lieutenant, I was greeted by a crusty old Vietnam, highly decorated MP military police sergeant. The first words, and I'll never forget this, the first words out of his mouth were, "Hey LT, what are the 9 most feared words in the English language?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." And he said, "I'm with the government. I'm here to help." That stuck with me, and that has rung true today, 40 years later. Okay. As you watch the video, and please go to the city of Somerset, you type in Facebook, city of Somerset, and you drop down, there's the city council meeting. You have to press the little button. It'll say on there, waiting to go live. You don't hit that. You have to hit it like you're starting, the little arrow that's like this. You have to hit that arrow, and it'll start, okay? Please go watch this meeting for yourself. One of the things I want you to notice is how many times Mayor Keck tried to end this meetings when the citizens wouldn't let him. He kept trying to shut the meeting down. He said, "Well, I'm going to put an end to this. Can I get a motion to end?" But the people wouldn't let him. And people wouldn't make a motion either. So this went on for a little bit. But that kind of tells you, watch how he reacts to this and how he really did not want to hear the citizens' concern, because he tried to shut this meeting down. After I spoke and did my statement, this lovely lady, I didn't catch her name, she took the podium after me and asked if the budget for Somerset was over $98 million. By the way, I've since confirmed that. She's right. It is over $98 million. Let me repeat that. She stood up to the podium and said, is the budget, I'm understanding that the budget's over $98 million. And the leachate that they're bringing in, the money they've made on it so far is about $600,000. And then she said, then why, with such a low amount of number compared to the overall budget, would you take a chance like this? Is it worth it? Thank you, lady. I'm sorry to get your name, but you have reduced it to the ridiculous, okay? That's the point. Why would you take a chance in a budget this big to just bring in $600,000 at the cost of $42 million of toxic waste? That's just crazy. The mayor's answer to her, please go and watch this. His answer was, and I quote, "It's economics." That's what he said to her. Don't take my word for it. Go watch this. In other words, you citizens out there, me and my family, and you and your family, I guess we're just a dollar sign to this mayor. That's what that statement says to me. Okay, on the issue of how far downstream the treatment plant was from the outtake from the Pulaski County drinking water is, and he tried to do another faux argument about that. Let me ask you this, Mayor. At what point does toxic waste become safe after leaving your treatment plant? Is it 2 miles? Is it 7 miles? Is it 20 miles? You tell us. C8 that does not break down, okay, doesn't dissolve. It's called forever chemicals for a reason. By the way, asbestos. Every one of these demolition industrial landfills take asbestos. Asbestos, hello, the ruling's in on that. That is deadly. It doesn't break down. And if it gets into the system and flows downstream, it's not going to dissolve. Neither is C8. Okay, so if the C8 or asbestos travels 20 miles, does it mean it's just going to take longer to kill us? You don't know, Mayor. You don't know. You're not an expert and you don't know. C8, okay, and C8 and asbestos, they don't break down at any distance. So this faux argument of trying to argue how far the treatment plant is from Pittman Creek and Pittman Creek to Lake Cumberland, it's all BS. Because guess what? It doesn't matter if it's 2 miles, 20 miles, 50 miles downstream. This stuff gets in the river, which it's going to, and goes downstream. It's deadly, period. And 20 miles downstream, if it gets into your system, if you catch a fish, hello, fish advisory already released, it's deadly, period. That's it. Faux argument, gone. The mayor continues to say he knows the water is safe. But in another sentence, he'll say, but I'm no expert. You know, that's called talking out of both sides of your mouth. If your treatment plant is so safe and nothing is wrong, then why, Mr. Mayor, in 2019, did your treatment plant managers, they sign an agreed order with the State Water District to fix all the things that were wrong with this plant? You signed an agreed order. You laid out all the things that was wrong, and you had to come up with what's called a CAP, a community action plan, and sign an agreed order saying you're going to get these things done. If there's nothing wrong here, why the agreed order? And by the way, that's posted too. Oh, by the way, I asked the State Water District and the State EPA, I hit them with an open records request asking them for any and all records they had in their possession where the Somerset wastewater treatment plant did in fact make the changes that they promised in this order. And guess what the response was? This was about a year ago I got the response back. Their response, this is from the state of Kentucky, EPA, State Water District, was, we have no records conducive to your request. In other words, as of that time frame and the agreed order, you did not produce one piece of evidence, not one document that you had done anything to fix any of these problems other than to fix one liner. One liner in 2020 is what they fixed. And to date, I haven't seen any more documents of what they fixed. And neither has the state of Kentucky. The mayor, after trying to silence the public, stated at the meeting last night, he stated that he wanted to have a public forum after the election. Go watch that. After the election. Well, newsflash, Mayor, we already had a public forum, which you were invited to. You knew about it. 3 of your city councilmen showed up because they were concerned about this. Citizens showed up. The paper showed up. Guess who didn't show up to the public forum? By the way, you can go view this public forum. Type in Lake Cumberland, What Really Lies Beneath on YouTube, and the words public forum. It pops right up for anybody to see. We already had a public forum. You didn't show up. Also, Mayor has repeatedly stated that he wants to have a private meeting with me. He said it last night and he said it before. Well, question is, why does he just want to have a private meeting with me? I don't know. Why doesn't he want the citizens at this meeting? You citizens should go back and watch this. He said that, and he said it before in some of his other comments. Why doesn't he want you citizens at this meeting? What is it he doesn't want you to hear? Right? Maybe that's why he didn't show up to the public forum. Also, the mayor said that he expects that he has experts in the back of the room. He says, hey, I've got experts. They're all in the back of the room here. Here's what didn't happen last night. He didn't call the experts up. They didn't take it upon themselves to rush to his defense. They just stood back there. That's kind of a red flag. Also, the mayor's primary argument, which was the same one he used in the March council meeting, because I appeared, remember, for those of you who are just watching, I appeared before the city council back in March about all of this, okay? So, his primary argument then and now, and he said it again last night, his argument is, well, what about everybody else polluting the lake? And he started listing, what about these people? What about this? All these people polluting the lake. And why haven't I gone after them? The obvious answer, Mayor, is I don't live in Bowling Green. I don't live in these other places. I live here, and we own property here. My family lives here. We use this lake. So that's the obvious answer of why it's more of a concern for me to be here. And here's another answer. It's what grandmas and mamas have been using for years to kids. If your friend jumps off a cliff, are you going to jump with them? I mean, that again, reducing it to the ridiculous. Besides, Mr. Mayor, is this your goal? Is your goal to be like everybody else, all the other polluters? Is this your race to the bottom? Is it your big goal to ruin this beautiful lake that so many citizens depend upon just because other people are doing it? That's like saying, well, the car in front of me threw out their fast food trash out the window and got away with it, so I should be able to throw my trash out too. Really? Also, the mayor stated, referring to me, he says, she's right, meaning me. She said, quote, I'm quoting this. This is word for word what he said. Don't take my word for it. Go watch this yourself. He says, she's right. These forever chemicals, as we learn more and more about them, will change the way we treat things. And once there are standards and once there is technology, we can do that in a manner, well, we'll do that. Until then, we're going to continue to follow their guidelines, okay? Whose guidelines? Doesn't say whose guidelines. Newsflash, the federal EPA just released the new standards, and they are zero. Let me repeat, the federal EPA came out with new standards. There are no safe levels of C8 in water, period. End of story. They're set. You know this, Mayor, and yet you're going to argue to bring this stuff in. Also, does anybody want to swim in asbestos? I said that last night. You know, raise your hand if you want to swim in asbestos. I looked around, nobody was raising their hand. That happened too. It is established in lawsuit after lawsuit, the federal government, anybody with half a brain knows nobody wants asbestos in their swimming water, in their drinking water, in any water. These landfills all are demolition waste landfills. Don't take my word for it. Go to these landfills' websites. It says right on their website, we accept asbestos. We accept demolition waste. So you're going to simply keep risking everybody's health and the safety of this beautiful lake and river and risk a multi-million-dollar class action lawsuit, which is probably going to happen. Risk poisoning an entire ecosystem and risk a multi-billion-dollar tourism industry. All this risk so you can make a measly $600,000 by bringing in 22 million gallons of toxic waste into a defective. Yes, it's defective. You can argue all you want. But you got violations right up to August of this year, Mayor. Your treatment plant is defective. Says so the state EPA and the state water district. Everyone, I want you to really think about what he's saying here and what this man is placing at risk. I want to address the comment someone made that I am bought off by his opponent, which is, I guess, the former mayor of Somerset, Mayor Gurgler. Again, we started our investigation almost 3 years ago. I care nothing about his election. I have only met Gurgler one time. He actually came to the public forum we had. You know, the one that you didn't come to, Mayor Keck. I dare anyone to cough up even one document or one piece of evidence that proves this accusation that I'm bought off by Gurgler. You need to prove up that accusation. What? What I do care about and what floored me when I started getting these documents, when we first started this investigation, I started getting these documents from the state EPA and the state water district, and what really floored me and really worried me is right before we started this investigation, my husband and I had pulled our little grandkids and 2 of our little nephews behind our boat in Pittman Creek. We had just done that. And what was going through my mind is, oh my God, we've exposed these kids to this. It really, and it does worry me. I have family members that live in Somerset and Pulaski County. This worries me personally, you know. This is why I did this. It has nothing to do with your election, and you can scream politics all you want. You have no documents to prove this up. None. The mayor also made a point that I'm not a citizen in Pulaski County. I'm from McCreary County. Well, guess what, Mayor? I'm a citizen of these United States, and my family uses Lake Cumberland, and I have precious family members that live there. Furthermore, Mayor, you're kind of wrong about that. We have a lake house on Lake Cumberland in Pulaski County, and we are citizens. We are customers of this water district. And like everyone else in Pulaski County, we are concerned about this since we know the drinking water people are not testing, no one is testing for C8. You know, and you've gone back and forth. You ran around this before. You wouldn't admit that you're not testing for C8. Now you finally have admitted you're not testing for C8, at least. The mayor also said that the drinking water folks have received awards for how pure their drinking water is. This is the Pulaski County drinking water people. Well, they didn't get an award for not having C8 or asbestos because they are not checking for this. They have produced not one document that shows that they are testing for C8 and they are not testing for asbestos, which is in these landfills. Folks, we've all heard about the poisoning of Camp Lejeune. You know, there was no problem there either until there was. You know, do we want Somerset to become Camp Somerset? Is that what we want to do? Keep turning a blind eye to this? The mayor last night said these are incredibly complex issues. He said that a couple times. These are incredibly complex issues. I disagree, Mayor. Folks, it's like this. Look at these violations I've posted. It's not complicated, Mayor. If E. coli is getting through, and it is, then C8 and asbestos, they are also getting past your defective system. If your system was fixed, you wouldn't be getting these violations. If C8's getting through, if E. coli's getting through, says so the state of Kentucky and the state EPA from 2016 to August of this year, your system's not fixed, you're still getting violations, E. coli's getting through, suspended asylum's getting through, then guess what? C8 and asbestos are getting through too. That's simple. That's not rocket science. Take a break here just for a second. I want to read to you now a very eloquent, and I got permission to read this tonight. This was an answer, I guess the mayor's brother, Michael Keck. Hold on, lose my voice here. He went on and made all kinds of accusations about me and called me names and everything else. So, and fine, that's the mayor's brother. Did you expect him to do anything else? But Steve Crabtree really addressed this better than anybody. And I just want to read his statement because it's very eloquent and it's just good. And he addresses his statement to Michael Keck. It is nothing less than noble for you to rise to the defense of your brother. However, neither your opinion nor assurances from elected officials will put this issue to rest. It has been alleged by Ms. Darlene Price that the city has received various citations from the state environmental officials. She says, according to past reports, produced copies of these citations. True or false? Ms. Price has, according to my conversation with a retired EPA official, accurately pointed out that our wastewater treatment facility hasn't the capability, nor is it adequately rated for efficient processing of the various heavy metals within any percentage of carcinogenic contaminant volume V, ensuring effluent ultimately discharge into Lake Cumberland. Your reference to contaminant versus volume is somewhat misleading. I go as far to say it is moot in this instant. A 6-pound bass caught from 1 acre farm pond would still be a 6-pound bass within the vast expanse of Lake Cumberland. Is there a lesser chance of coming into contact with this bass in Lake Cumberland than the farm pond? Of course. I've covered many such stories during my 8 years as an investigative reporter and later oversaw coverage of an even greater number of stories from running network-affiliated TV newsrooms for 26 years. As a proud resident of Somerset, now retired, I'm frustrated by how the local and Lexington news media have done an abysmal job at providing critical analysis of this issue. In the early 80s, I covered a story about the now defunct Middlesboro tannery dumping carcinogens into Yellow Creek. Local and plant officials vehemently denied the allegations, with Frankfurt regulations speaking out in their defense. The job of a journalist is that of a professional skeptic. We at WKYT partnered with our then CBS sister station in Knoxville, WBIR, and funded independent researchers from Vanderbilt to come to Middlesboro and draw samples from the creek to perform lab analysis back at their Nashville laboratory. These results were stunning. Extraordinary amounts of heavy metals, all carcinogenic, cancer-causing, were confirmed. Some 13 families who lived along the creek filed suit against the tannery and the city because of an inordinary high cancer rate that was tracked back to the tannery errant and deadly effluent. Effluent is what comes out of the wastewater treatment plants. The tannery went into bankruptcy and the city settled out of court. Beyond question, you are obviously correct. This issue has startled and frightened many residents. I avoid drinking Somerset water until I have the facts to prove the water flowing from the wastewater treatment plant is safely being processed per regulated protocols. And is the water drawn from the lake being efficiently treated? The smell and taste of our water is and has been repugnant compared to many other communities. That's my opinion. What you offer is well-intentioned opinion as well, but you and everyone else has failed to produce corroborated, independent, and reliable proof to refute the allegations made by Ms. Price. Why, after more than a year, has this issue not been dealt with? Respectfully, I would urge the city to challenge the entity like the Sierra Club or other independent non-governmental entities to commission their own study of their effluents, environmental impact on fish and wildlife in and around the lake, as well as any alleged threat to safety of the lake water for avid boaters and swimmers like yours truly, as well as, of course, the integrity of our drinking water. Until then, the jury is out to the extent that I no longer allow my grandchildren to swim in Lake Cumberland. The timing of this issue is unfortunate. I resent it being used for purposes of political expediency, as is by your brother's opponent. But it is what it is, an issue that should have been independently confirmed or denied when it first rose to the top of the mind concern, not 2 weeks out from an election nor after election. Be assured, there is no one who wants this resolved more than me. I hope the allegations prove baseless. I hope that we just happen to be a wonderful community with lousy drinking water. But Ms. Price has presented compelling evidence for the past year. He put that on bold print, for the past year, perhaps longer, to warrant an all-out investigation of the matter by the state and federal EPA agencies, as well as independent investigations by the news media akin to the one WKYT and WBIR did, as I described above. We the people won't settle for less, nor is it fair to expect us to. Thank you for your time spent addressing this issue, and it is my hope that political exploitation end and productive investigation begin. God bless our community and the beloved Lake Cumberland. And that's the end of his statement. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Crabtree, for putting this in very clear terms for what we all really do feel. Folks, there was more, but please go watch the video that happened last night, the meeting yourself. Please carefully review these violations. Notice it'll say what the standard, allowance measures is. And, I'm not a math major. You don't have to be a math major. But when it says this and it looks like it's 10 times more, I'm sorry, but that's an issue, okay? Or 5 times more the allowable amount. of E. coli in. Also, pay very close attention to the nitrogen levels in Pittman Creek. When your nitrogen levels are off to the degree that these are, there's something wrong. Okay? This ain't me. This is the state EPA and the state water district issuing these violations. So I'm going to conclude with that. We hope you guys enjoy this. This going back and forth between me and the mayor. We hope that something gets resolved. And again, thank you so much for following us. Thank you to MBR TV. Thank you to all the people behind the scenes that make Truth or Politics happen. Thank you for Pulaski County, the folks in Pulaski County, Truth or Politics. Also, we're in Louisville. This is going to air in Louisville as well. Well, we have Truth or Politics in Pulaski, or Truth or Politics in Louisville. Thank you very much. We will see you next time on Truth or Politics. Thanks.